I'm Richard Piet. Welcome to the BC City Connection podcast. We're coming to you right from City Hall in Battle Creek, Michigan. Today, we're talking about neighborhood planning councils. What are those? Let's find out. Commissioner Jessica Lacosse is here with us, Commissioner from Ward 1.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Helen Guzzo's here too. She's practically a co-host of the show. We've talked to Helen many times, Community Development Manager in the city of Battle Creek. Thanks to you both.
Thank
Good
you.
to be here.
Well, thank
Community
you.
Development is all about the health of Battle Creek. That's why I'm so prolific, I think.
That is true. There are many areas under the community development umbrella, aren't there? And the neighborhood planning councils are those. What are they?
Jessica has been terrific about restarting Neighborhood Planning Council 10, which is the Lakeview Prairie View. It's the last of our core neighborhood planning councils to restart after the pandemic. But the City Commission chartered neighborhood planning councils in 1976 to be a listening ear, a community process of citizen participation, engagement with neighborhoods. And there's 5 in our core city. They were the ones that were established in 1979. NPC 1 is in Post Edition. NPC 2 is in Washington Heights. NPC 3 is the old Lakeview neighborhood area. NPC 4 is the historic North Side. And NPC 5 is Urbandale. And then when we merged in 1983 with Battle Creek Township, then we added 9, 10, and 11. 9 is the rural Southwest. It's not restarted after the pandemic. But NPC 11, which is Mingus Creek, that one restarted. And then Jessica has been spearheading the re-engagement of the Westlake Prairie View Neighborhood Planning Council 10.
Which has been a process.
It's been a process.
Absolutely.
Why have you been passionate about making sure these were all restarted?
For me personally, I think that it comes down to really kind of getting, the voices of the residents from these particular areas. They really influence the city commission's decision on a lot of things. For example, Urbandale, we just had someone come there from Dunkin' Donuts. They're looking at opening a new one over there by Taco Bell, and they presented it to the NPC, and the NPC kind of gives an informal opinion to the city commission on whether they think this should go through or not. And those are the people that live in that neighborhood that are directly affected by it, so they're going to know more than anybody.
So, Helen, this could be your first opportunity to gauge what the temperature is on a certain subject. This is an association of sorts of neighbors, and this is the path they can express their points of view.
Right. It's great to get to know your city commissioners. Most of the city commissioners go to the neighborhood planning councils that cover their ward. I know Jessica goes to NBC 5 and NBC 10 and other ones maybe quite regularly. I've seen her at NBC 11 also. And usually you always have a police report. So we have a community-oriented policing, a cops officer that comes and gives a crime report and can hear neighborhood concerns. There's always talk about people speeding and road conditions, and then planning and zoning come. And then we have a code compliance officer. So every neighborhood planning council has a code compliance officer that's responsible for that area. And they come and they give a report on the violations and the systemic reviews of properties that they're doing. And then they take concerns from neighbors. Maybe they haven't noticed and they're driving around the neighborhood, junking trash or peeling paint or some other front yard parking. And so it's a great way to communicate neighborhood concerns to your code officer.
Commissioner, this is what you hear when you go there? You
Yes.
hear what people are worried about.
Exactly. One of ours just talked about there was an issue in that particular neighborhood with people disposing mattresses, things like that, and not being picked up. And it kind of was relayed to us that it was because they weren't in the plastic bags. So we're looking at, I guess the city used to have a program for that. We're looking at, getting that started again. It's an issue that we wouldn't have known about otherwise. So
Yeah, you're learning information you might not have heard otherwise in these situations.
Exactly.
Helen, this is informational, too, from a City Hall standpoint in the operations of the city, community development concerns. You're probably hearing things out of these councils for the first time, too.
Well, I administer the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is federal funding. And there's a huge emphasis on citizen engagement and citizen participation. And that's why community development supports the neighborhood planning councils, because they're multifaceted ways for people to learn about government and to give input to government. But it's also a way for, I go twice a year to all the neighborhood planning councils and talk about our annual action plan, how we're going to spend the money. And then in the fall, I go and explain how we did spend the money. There's not a lot of variation. We have a minor home repair. We fund a quarter of code compliance. The 1.2 million we get in CDBG hasn't gone up since 2012, but it is important feedback. And then planning and zoning, before things be planning and zoning and before they go to the city commission, planning and zoning asks the developers to go talk to their neighborhood planning council. It's a requirement. And so that's why that discussion in NPC 5 was about Dunkin' Donuts, but it's all development. I know NBC 3 was like, no, we don't want another marijuana. We're not going to vote to approve you because we don't want another marijuana facility on Capitol Avenue. And that was a very loud community input that was given. And
Sure.
so that's something that goes on in neighborhood planning councils. And, some of them struggle more than others. Like NBC 10 we had 10 last 2 weeks ago, which was amazing, but we've had two other times. So it's all volunteer effort. We need to recruit. Like NBC 10 has struggled to recruit. Jessica's given great leadership, but she has a conflict of interest. She can't be chair of a neighborhood planning council because they're reporting and voting on input to give to the city commission. So
Sure.
city commissioners can be ex officio members, but they can't be officers. So neighborhood planning councils really is an all volunteer effort. Kathy Atea chairs NPC 5, Brad Miller chairs NPC 11, and they're just concerned citizens. And so we need to recruit new leaders so that when those people are ready to step down, we have new ones. We're mentoring new folks to get involved to be good chairs. And then all of the members, they're confirmed they have to attend 3 meetings, and then they submit their names to be nominated by the city commission. So the city commission approves all members, and they have to have at least 7 members present to have quorum. So they're
Mhm.
representative. It's a little piece of democracy, neighborhood planning councils are.
No kidding. Boy, I was just thinking as you were describing that, this is not just a place to come and throw out public comment or something. Jessica, this is pretty serious. There's a platform, a process, and
Yes.
like Helen said, a bit of democracy. You have to have some serious folks in the neighborhood who want to really be a part of it, don't they?
Absolutely. Kathy Antaya over in Urbandale does a great job. I mean, everything is run by Robert's rules, and she's very big stickler for following that guideline. There's a process and an order to things. So,
There's a public comment period, and they have to follow the Open Meetings Act, so everyone is open. It's an open public meeting. They can't close the doors. So it's run a little bit like a city commission meeting, but not, it's an informal, like Jessica brought cake to celebrate birthdays. It's that a community at NBC 4 in February. They're doing a little wine and cheese to get it started because they want to create better connections and want to recruit new members. So we really do need more, especially younger homeowners, renters. We have a lot of older folks that are kind of used to public process, and we're a little too old and we're a little too white. We want everybody to come to neighborhood planning councils so that it really is representative of our community so that we can, and Neighborhood Planning Council 5, they do neighborhood cleanups twice a year. They've done festivals, neighborhood festivals before. I know MC4 has done block groups. I know Jessica asks for funds from the Battle Creek Community Foundation. And in the spring, they're going to be doing some sort of cookout, something to recruit more members so that people know how important it is to get involved in your neighborhood planning council.
You anticipated where I was going because I wondered how you would invite people to consider participating in this and not just stopping by to hear what's happening, which is important too, but actually being on the commission and the council and learning and carrying out the process that you're describing. Is there, Jessica, usually an opportunity of some kind there for someone to volunteer?
it's great for all residents. Like Helen said, we really want to get people from all different backgrounds there. but it has been a struggle to get people aware of the NPCs. A lot of people just don't know about them. So we've really been trying to put them out in social media. There was lists of residents that used to be part of the one NPC that I'm trying to resurrect. So I would go out and put flyers on their doors, and that did recruit some more individuals. But just getting the word out there, because it's so advantageous for any resident to be a part of this, not only information, but to have their voice heard and, get to know their community members and be a part of something.
Boy, some folks are probably surprised that there's their commissioner hanging a door hanger on their door and ringing
Yeah.
the bell and saying hello.
I thought I might have been on one of the Facebook pages last week because it was 1 in the morning when I was doing it. But
1 in the morning. Wow.
But we
Wow.
have on the city website, we have the minutes, we have the members, we have the description of where your neighborhood planning council is. There's a map. So neighborhood planning councils, it's right under your government. And there's a list of when the meetings are held. They're all held like NPC 1 is at the Doris Hale facility, which is the Head Start building on 110 Green Street, and they meet the first Thursday at 7 p.m. North Central, which is Washington Heights, they meet at Washington Heights United Methodist Church at 153 Northwood on the second Monday at 6 p.m. Pastor Monique French is actually the chair of NPC 2. So they have a regular meeting spot and they meet at a regular time. And NPC 3 has been really struggling with their quorum because they just not recruited new members. So we have to have 7 to be able to approve your minutes and to be able to vote and give input on the planning and development things that are coming before the neighborhood planning councils. So we
Sure.
really are here to ask citizens to get involved and to start coming to neighborhood planning councils. We need new folks to replace folks that move away or just are age and can't go out in the evening as much, but they are all evening meetings and they're in public locations. And they usually last about an hour, hour and a half. They never last more than an hour and a half, but depending on how controversial an issue is, like Neighborhood Planning Council 11 was very involved in the Lakeview Business District plan that the city just adopted.
Jessica, someone's listening to this and maybe they're saying, oh, maybe I want to do that, or maybe I should do that, but I don't know if I'm the right person. Talk to them a little bit and help them think about it.
Really, everyone is the right person. I mean, we want to have all voices part of this. So, there's an opportunity, to be the chairperson, vice chair, or secretary. And we're looking for that for NPC 10 right now at our next meeting. But just to be, one of those voices that adds to the conversation about whether we're going to go through with a development or we should go through with it. And it's a good place to also learn about different things. We have different speakers at every meeting. We had Michael from the library recently, and he told us all kinds of different activities that we weren't aware of, that there's a 3D printer that people can use for free. There's a lot of different things that can add to that.
Well, what is that they say? 90% of life is showing up. So
We
if you
want more
show up,
people to show up to our neighborhood planning councils because
yeah.
it's a great way to learn more about how your government works and then to have input into decision making.
Yes.
How often do you turn over the chair and the vice chair and the officers of the council?
Jim Marino has been chair of Neighborhood Planning Council 1 for about 40 years.
Oh
But
my goodness.
But there is an annual meeting every year, and the commission, the council votes and affirms. So they usually have a nominating process where they ask a nominating committee or one person to say who wants to be chair, and it's always like Rotary and Lions and Kiwanis. They all kind of struggle with how do we recruit folks that run a good meeting, that have the time and the energy and the passion to inspire others to get involved. So there is an annual meeting and to be a member, you agree to 3 years. So it's a 3-year term and then we renew every 3 years, your membership in a neighborhood planning council. But planning councils are open to anybody to attend. And then if you have attended 3 meetings, then you can ask or they will encourage you to apply to become a member. And then there's an annual meeting, usually in the around this time that elects leadership.
Okay. Well, 3 years makes a lot of sense. Sounds very similar to if folks have served on a nonprofit board, something of that nature. It's very similar to that, and so it's an opportunity too to be involved in your neighborhood. Now, Helen, you mentioned the different nights and locations of these meetings. I presume that's available on the website,
It's
right?
all on the city's website. Yep, there's many locations, but all the minutes are in the agenda center. They follow a standard minute or a standard agenda. So there always is a police report. There's always a code report, and usually there's a guest speaker, like Perry Hart from the water department. We've had water issues, and it's been very interesting. And people need to understand the new wells that have been put in at Verona Wellfield and that have created the organic matter, that the byproduct, and he does a great job of explaining the Marshall water aquifer that we all get water from. And, those are the kinds of things that just help you understand how city services are delivered, who the civil servants are that administer, and, that whether or not, you feel like with Perry, I always feel like I can trust him. Like he's just a good person, a professional trying to do his best to make, and so he explains what the TTHMs are, and I think it's really helpful. And then like Jessica was helpful in getting the Department of Public Works to put some speed bumps on Iroquois in front of Westlake schools. And that was through citizen complaint and activism and getting to the city commissioner to have it be raised with the Department of Public Works.
Was that something you heard in a planning council, Jessica?
I had a lot of neighbors because I'm in that particular neighborhood. So prior to me even running for commissioner, I had spoken to a lot of them. But that was one of the really big things that they, had as an issue, especially because it's right by a school. So that was one of the first things that we did as part of that NPC. And that's something that you can only do through an NPC. So
Yeah. Okay. By the way, we talked with Perry about water in another episode here of the BC City Connection. So we invite you to subscribe to these episodes so you're aware when they come available and some of these details come out. But the neighborhood planning councils are your chance to have your finger on the pulse in your neighborhood and be involved in the discussions with your neighbors and the city. What an opportunity, ladies, for this chance for folks. Neighborhood Planning Council, City of Battle Creek. We'll link the link that Helen referred to in the show notes for this episode as well, so you can click right through and get more info on those neighborhood planning councils. Commissioner Jessica Lacosse, Helen Guzzo, City of Battle Creek, thanks to you both.
thank you.
Thanks for all you do for our city.